Jordan, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. We're here today to talk with you about your composing work for the film "See You When I See You." Yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
hmm I I'm excited for this conversation because I had the chance to see you when I see you at Sundance, and uh, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But before I get into that, another reason I was really excited about this conversation is because you did the score for Half Brothers.
I
Um,
did.
And it's been a while since I've seen Half Brothers, but I keep some of those tracks on high rotation when I'm like, studying or like working. Like there's some really, really good tracks on there. And I saw your name and I was like, I know his music. Yeah, let's get that conversation.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Yeah, that film, I'm really proud of that score, and it's had this life beyond the movie that I would have never imagined. It's had like a ton of success on the streaming services, and I've had that response from a lot of people of like, "Hey, I was going for a walk, and you came on my playlist,"
hmm
and so that's been really cool. I mean, that's at the end of the day, like I just want my music to reach people, and so thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about Sundance. I wasn't at the world premiere, but I did see a different screening. And so I want to know about your experience at Sundance and how all of that went with the world premiere.
It was so fun. It was such a surreal experience, and really emotional. It's emotional film as you've
Mhm.
seen, and, Jay is such an awesome director, and I think he like, you care about this movie so much because he cares about it so much. So, just after going through the whole process of just trying to make this, the best movie can be and the best score can be, and then seeing it and having just an audience, we screened at Eccles, and
Mhm.
so I was there with almost 1,300 people, and it felt like there wasn't a dry eye. It was that point where you just heard, like, the people not able to breathe from, like, being so much like the tears and some of those, and so just hearing that and feeling that energy from that many people was like it was really surreal, and it was really special.
This is really interesting. That's a great transition into something that I wanted to ask and actually remind you of because one of my contributors actually had a really a great time covering the red carpet at See You When I See You, and he had a chance to talk with you. If you don't
Oh,
mind, I'm going to play a clip from that red carpet interview. Hold on.
Final question: is there one particular scene that you adored working on the music for, and you just think it's like ultimate work?
I think the final scene is really powerful. I'm really excited because it's just you've been leading up to it, and I'm really excited to see how the viewers feel when they get to the end.
So
wow,
you
this is surreal right now. Yeah, watching the interview within an interview.
I know,
Yeah,
right? It's really I mean, this was an important movie for us to cover at Sundance, and so it's
yeah,
cool that we had that chance to chat with you, and that you're pointing out, like, the emotional impact of the ending here, and, this interview was done before, we had seen the movie, and
yeah.
now that we have seen the movie, and as you're explaining, tell me more about that
Yeah, I
reaction that
mean,
audience have had.
when we got to that final scene that I was hoping would have that reaction, it definitely did. I mean, you could just feel that we were building up to it, and it just felt like a cathartic release of emotions for everybody, and, me included. I've seen the film obviously many times,
Mhm.
and I was having a very emotional reaction too, just watching it and in that atmosphere, and I know Jay's seen it so much, and he still I know has emotional reactions to it. So it was really, really special.
Yeah, there's music has that effect, right? Like it's really a powerful way to kind of unify an emotional sentiments in a film. Um, which kind of leads me into my next question, and I have one more clip. I promise this is the last one, but this is also from that red carpet, and kind of segues into another question I want to ask. Hold on.
When you were reading the script and a part of production, could you just like envision some of the score in your head?
I actually came on when they had almost a final cut, which was great for me because I could already see it, and it was in such a great place, and so that it was very easy to develop a concept based on that because I could already see the elements and how I want to divide different themes to help support the story.
So it was interesting hearing you talk about that because coming into the project when it was almost done, it was now your responsibility to create those emotional ties and like really bring it all together. I want to know about the advantages to coming into a project when it's almost completed, and maybe how that compares and contrasts to being a part of a project earlier on.
Yeah, so I mean, in this case, the main advantage is that you can see an almost finished project where you're not thinking, okay, this is going to be a 5 minute cue that's going to end up being 3 minutes, and oh, this scene might get cut, so maybe that
Mm,
theme that was there isn't even going to be involved anymore. So having done that before, it's so nice just to be like, I can see almost a lot cut and know exactly what I need to do, and not have to worry about revising um, in terms of matching the edit. Happy to revise it to get it to the right tone and match in those ways. But we can just focus on that and not worry about editing the film at the same time. So that was great because I could just see exactly how much of each theme might need to be needed.
mm,
And then the advantages of getting on earlier, that your music can get in earlier.
mm,
So
mhm,
instead of, it's a pro and con, because I basically had the movie, but it was all they've been watching it now, and they've been watching it with
mm,
temp music
mhm,
being the temporary music, and that can be tough sometimes. Jay, again, just such an awesome filmmaker that he is so good at just separating himself from the temp, which is kind of rare.
mm,
There were it's so in that ways it was nice because it meant, hey, here's a reference. I'm not totally in love with it, but this gives us a certain starting place.
mm.
So we're not starting from scratch, but it's not like, hey, I love this so much. You need to beat this thing I love so much, which is really hard. Um, but at the same time, yeah, there was none of my music. I would have loved to have some of my
Mhm,
music in the film before they did a final
mhm,
cut, because the first theme I did, which was the main theme, I watched the film, but then I did it kind of away from the picture, um, just so I could really focus on hitting the emotions that I wanted to get out of that theme.
mm,
And then I would have loved to have that kind of sprinkled through, but I did it, you
mm.
know, so that I could customize it per scene.
Well, we're gonna talk. I want to talk a little bit more about you working with Jay in a bit, but before I move on to that, just another question about "See You When I See You," because when we did that interview, it was before we had seen the movie, and so we're just kind of speculating what might be happening in the movie because there's some rumbles about a surreal aspect, and now we've seen the movie,
Yeah.
and there's definitely, I mean, it's kind of classified as a dramedy. There's definitely a really traumatic aspect to the film, but it's also a comedy. It's a family drama. There's a lot to balance there, and then there is this interesting surreal aspect to it as the main character. I think is Aaron his name.
Yes.
Uh, he as he is trying to grapple with this trauma and this loss that he's dealing with. Um, Balance, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. How do you balance all of that, or how do you approach balancing all of that in the score with a project like this?
Yeah. I think it's helpful to look at it in the big picture to make sure that it all feels somewhat unified, but also it doesn't feel repetitive, like you're using the same thing, that it still needs to be have different vibes. So, I think for this aesthetic, I wanted a lot of organic sounds, so that it never felt so that it felt unified. So the organic sounds for the main theme are very like realistic instruments and melodic and that stuff. And then the kind of emotional, um when he's going through this trauma, that's a lot more like organic synths, but still
Mm,
not overly electronic in any way, like still very organic in that way, but also using some of the textures that are in the melodic parts. So there's a lot of woodwinds that are kind of softly fluttering that create this kind of emotional wall of sound, which I was going for, and a lot of these emotional instruments on top of that aggressive organic synths. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that this was Jay's insight of just like, even though this is really tough and aggressive and he's having a tough time, there's still a big emotionality to it.
mhm,
And when the film was temped, it was temped with almost horror music in those elements. And we were like, this is really scary. It doesn't feel like there's something off here. And so I was using that, okay, it needs to feel aggressive and overwhelming, but like give me an aspect of emotionality on top of that.
Mhm. I'm a huge fan of the main theme here. I'm pretty sure it's called The Whistler Family.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's so whimsical and family and just like this lightheartedness, which I think is ultimately the point of this movie is hope and hopefulness.
yeah.
And I think you do such a great job conveying that in this family theme that you
Thank you so
composed here.
much.
So, um what's really interesting is so you worked with Jay before, you were the composer for the Baltimorons, which is a very different genre of
Yes.
music. You are all in on jazz on that
Yeah.
project. Um, so talk to me about the differences in approaching this family dramedy the way that you did versus approaching like the Baltimorons, which is a lot more jazzy, very swingy, very holiday.
Yeah. Um, well, the Baltimoreans was, yeah, the first project I worked on with Jay, and I did that in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh wow.
And it was, I mean, and I'm a jazz pianist, so for me, it was just so within my lane that, and I got my trio on it, so it was so fun because it was just, it was like the most effortless project I've done of just like, oh, I'm doing the thing I love to do. And so we were able to do that, and that had a very clear temp. I mean, that was
Mhm.
like, we're going for a Vince Guaraldi vibe. Let's do it. And I said, great. Let's have fun, but still keep it unified. And so when Jay approached me about See You When I See You, I mean, I was happy that he trusted me because our only experience had been like, hey, straight ahead jazz. And I'm glad that he trusted me like to do something other than that. um, and so this one I knew, this cannot be a jazz score, and yet there is a sense of jazz harmony that I just
Yeah.
feels ingrained in it. And but I knew the type of sound that I wanted to go for, and he was down with that.
That's so cool. I wanna know what your favorite thing is about working with Jay. What makes you, happy to repeatedly collaborate with him?
Um, he's great. I mean, I have so much respect for him as a filmmaker, and he's just such a nice guy. It's and it's as and that matters because when we're doing this, we're everyone's trying their best, and he knows I'm trying my best, and so even if the music isn't right, he's so nice about it that it's just like, "Hey, I love this. This is beautiful. What a beautiful work. What would you think about this?" And like, oh, in my head, I'm like, "I think this is a rewrite, but I understand why, and there's a
Right.
reason for it." It's like there, and every note he has is just about making the story better. It's not about, oh, I like the temp better because I'm used to it. It's like it's really about what's going to serve the picture, and that's my goal too.
Mhm.
And I think we both are just coming at it from, let's collaborate, let's make something really cool. And I know that I might have some ideas that he didn't think about, and he might have some ideas I didn't think about. So it feels like a true collaboration. So yeah, it's awesome.
Maybe extending from that, just as far as your work as a film composer in general, I'm always curious about, how craft teams work with directors and what you think is the key component to making to having a functional collaboration with the director. So for you, what is it that you look for in a director in order to have a successful collaboration between directing and composing?
I think yeah, communication style is really important. How
Mm,
you present something, and making sure, trying to be as clear about what you want emotionally. I always
mhm.
like it when directors speak in emotions. They're either like, I love this aspect of it, I'm not getting enough of this, or I want more of this emotion. Um, and so rather than, "Oh, I don't like the flute," or "I don't like," or "I think what about cello here? Cello would be great." Like, let me that's fine. They're allowed to suggest, but I much prefer going with emotions. And then I could possibly suggest, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And when Jake came over, for a playback meeting, it's fun just to play him ideas right on the spot. It's like, "Hey, why don't we do this? What if we had a little more space here?" And so then, it's great just to collaborate in real time. And that way, often I can just do quick adjustments and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And sometimes there's like, hey, can you give me 5 or 10 minutes? Let me do something real quick, come back and see what you think. So I think, yeah, I think mutual respect and being kind and talking with emotions.
Mhm. We're gonna make this a master class in composing and how to be a composer in the film industry,
Yeah.
because I also want to know a little bit more from you about how does a composer, like, be successful at this? Like, if somebody aspires to be a film composer, what what do you recommend or advise, or what has your experience taught you about how to approach film composing and, like you're saying, kind of have your wheelhouse, but also be willing to step out of it? Like, tell me about what advice you'd give to people for that.
For me, it's been like get as good at your craft as possible. That's part of it. Just, I mean, I love making music. I'm very passionate about orchestration and harmony and melody and studying the greats. And so I mean, I've studied so much music, and as a jazz pianist, I've had that whole realm of study as well. So I've just tried to to get better and better at the craft because it's hard and it's endless. Like I know I'll just keep doing this forever because I love studying it and I love making music. So for me, it's been get really, try and get as good at the craft as possible, and all the things that you'd want for someone to work with. That's, being on time, being respectful, being kind, all those things. I think just trying to marry those things together so people know they can, hey, he's fun to be around, he's responsible, and I like the music he makes, and that's what I try to do. And I want people to think of me that way, and I think anybody who's trying to get into this industry would hopefully try to do the same.
Mhm. Yeah, great insight there. Um, I'm gonna bring this to a close here in a minute, but it's really cool. So I got to see the film at Sundance, and I know it's been doing a robust film festival run lately. It'll actually be at my home festival, the Seattle National Film Festival, here in a
Oh,
couple
great.
weeks. So I'm happy that this is starting to get out and that more people are getting to see it, and that's going to come to my region, and that people here will see it. In fact, I think Jay will also be attending that screening as well. But For people going into this movie or who are curious or excited to see it, how would you set expectations for them before going into the film? I think I've kind of alluded to what I've experienced with it, but from your perspective, how do you set the expectation for what to go into this film, expecting?
Yeah, I think knowing, at the very beginning, first 5 minutes, you know what the film's about. So
Mhm.
you're going into a film that's dealing with a really heavy situation, which is a family dealing with the loss of a family member, which is very heavy. And yet you also know, like, oh, but it doesn't feel too, hopefully not too sappy or not too heavy throughout. There's a lot of humor in it. And so I think know that it's going to be a serious story, but there's a lot of humor in it. And I think, you know, coming out of it, people have a very hopefully optimistic view on life and seeing, okay, there's no one right way to grieve. And I think people have had very deeply emotional responses to it, but also just had a good time with a lot of the humor in it as well.
Mhm. Very cool. Well, like I said, I can't wait for more people to see it, and I appreciate you having this conversation with me. It's really cool to have this insight on this movie, and I will continue following your work because I have been, and it's really cool to finally have a chance to chat with you, Jordan.
Oh, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much.